We got Tanner Wooten on the line. Tanner, what's going on?
Hey, Mark. How are you, sir?
I am doing just fine. Appreciate you answering the call, sir.
Of course, man. Glad to be here.
So the team made it through this little 3-game stretch without their head coach on the sideline for game day, at least. The first 2 performances look pretty much like go out there, put up 4 scores, and then call it quits. Cruise control for the offense. The defense takes it home, only giving up 1 score. Easy win. This one looked a little different in that J.J. McCarthy, after looking so incredibly sharp for 2 weeks, threw the 3 picks. The running game got going a little bit. So what are your thoughts about Bowling Green, if you can really take much from that game?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. I mean, it was a rough day for J.J. McCarthy. I was at the game on Saturday. I'd been a long day of tailgating, Mark. I'd maybe had some beverages and was not too pleased with some of the throws. But coming out of the stadium, I was being a negative Nelly or whatever you want to call it. I was like, oh my gosh, what was going on? I will say, and I don't want to, be the typical Michigan homer, but watching kind of some of the replays, definitely correctable. Definitely coachable when it comes to JJ on those 3 interceptions. Like you said, the run game felt very good about the O-line and the run game. It felt like they got back to kind of that typical Michigan power football. And you saw it from the first play with Blake Corum, had a big run. He had 2 touchdowns over 100 yards. So, and the defense, Michigan had 4 turnovers. They had the 3 picks, and then they fumbled a kick return that went to their up back, who was a fullback, Max Bredesen, that he ended up fumbling. One of those situations where you're just yelling, just fair catch it, please, anything, just go down. 4 turnovers and they give up 6 points. So the defense was pretty dominant. Even without Will Johnson and Rod Moore, both they're 2 of their best defenders, 2 of their best players on the team haven't played this season. So overall, I mean, yeah, look, it wasn't the most the prettiest game. And there's definitely things to work on, but still feel very similar to kind of where I was coming into this season, that this is a championship level football team. And they just kind of got to put everything together now, because you've seen moments of greatness from JJ in these first couple of games, and he kind of reverts a little bit and looks a little rough. Same thing with the run game. The first couple of games, everyone's like, where's the run game? Where's the run game? Now you have it. Now it's just getting everybody on the same page, having that level of rhythm that Michigan fans have been accustomed to the last couple of years, and just kind of getting everything with Jim Harbaugh coming back to the sideline here on Saturday.
We got Tanner Wooten here from Blue by 90. Check out his work. Tanner, tell the people the best way to find you, your podcast, everything going on there at Blue by 90.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Tanner Wu-Tang. You can find us on blueby90.com. We do a lot of written stuff. We have a couple podcasts that we do. You can just search Blue by 90 on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're on YouTube as well. So we do a lot of stuff covering Michigan here. We have a tailgate that we do at the Chrysler Center parking lot. So a lot of ways you can find us, interact with us. We love it. It's a lot of fun.
I am not going to oversell Rutgers as some kind of major challenge. However, definitely a step up from what Michigan's seen the first 3 weekends, and a team that just beat Virginia Tech by 3 touchdowns, has played well for 3 weeks, took out Northwestern easily. It's a team that is not going to wow anybody on the perimeter. They're not going to throw a ton of athletes or wide receivers at you. The quarterbacks threw for like 50 yards.
46, yeah.
Yeah, Gavin Wimsatt, 46 yards against Virginia Tech. And that's not just because he's not very good. It's also just the style of play. This is what they want to do. They want to run at 50 and throw it like 15 is what they want to do. And let's also keep in mind, they led Michigan, I believe, at halftime last year before Michigan really stepped on the gas. And then 2 years ago, they played that ugly game in Ann Arbor of what turned out to be a Michigan Big Ten champion playoff team. And it was 20-13 final. And Rutgers had its chances in the fourth quarter. So not necessarily a complete joke of a game here.
No, and if you go back even further to 2020, that was a game where Joe Milton did 17-0, and Michigan had Cade McNamara comes in and takes over, and kind of the rest is history. Probably saves Jim Harbaugh's job, if we're being honest. I mean, a couple of 3 games in a row that have been kind of interesting. I actually got married during the Michigan Rutgers game last year. It was supposed to be the bye week, Mark. My wife was very cool about it, and then COVID scheduling got switched up, so we had that game on the wedding. I would be lying if I said that I was not looking at the phone with some friends. But, I mean, you got Rutgers 3-0 coming to town. year 4 of the second term of Greg Schiano at Rutgers as head coach. I feel like a really good physical football team. Aaron Lewis, who actually was enrolled at Michigan in 2020, transfers back home because of personal reasons, has been a really good defensive lineman for them at D end. They've got some players, man. But I will say, looking at the Rutgers, Virginia, I didn't watch it. And I made this comment on our podcast. I was like, if you're watching Rutgers Virginia Tech live and you're not a fan, there's something wrong with you. You love college football. I respect it, but there's got to be something going on there. But an interesting game in the fact that I want to say that, Virginia Tech outgains Rutgers, although Rutgers averages 1.5 yards more per play. But like you said, 46 yards, under 50 yards for Gavin Wimsatt, 7-16. I think Rutgers defense is pretty good. So it's going to be a good test for the offense. I don't know how much that offense from Rutgers is going to test Michigan's defense. The way that Michigan's defensive line has been playing, even without two of their best players in the back end, I mean, they've just been playing really good football overall as a unit. Chris Jenkins almost had a pick 6 against Bowling Green. He's been a monster. Mason Graham's one of the best in the country at defensive tackle. Kenneth Grant's really emerging, a guy that Ohio State really wanted. That was a big recruiting win for Michigan for Kenneth Grant, who is a 3-star out of Indiana, but he's 6'3", 6'4", 360 pounds, can move, right? And he's really turning into a big time player for Michigan. So they've got a lot of guys on that front 7 that are playing good, and even in the back 7 too. I mean, they haven't really been tested, so this will be an interesting matchup. But I just don't think Rutgers has the guys to push the ball downfield. I think they've got what's their running back's name? I don't want to butcher it.
Kyle Monangai.
Monangai, yeah. I think he's playing some good football. So they've got some players, man. But may just still be a little bit of time before Rutgers is able to put together some wins and maybe get back to where Schiano had him in his first stint as head coach at Rutgers. So feel good about Michigan's chances in this one. Still think they'll probably win by a few touchdowns. But I do think that defense may prove to be tough for Michigan to handle. But I just think there's too much talent on this Michigan team to really struggled that much against Rutgers. So
Monangai had 165 against Temple. Yeah. He had about 140, something like that. He had a big game against Virginia Tech. And actually, I don't know that Schiano's got Rutgers not that far away from where they were in the Big East. I just think the competition's
That's
different.
True. Absolutely. Yeah.
They might be as good as they were in the Big East going
probably
7-5.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. 4. They did have the win. They beat Louisville.
Oh, they had
that was a big win. That was a long time ago.
7.
Yeah, it was when college football was very weird. Kansas was up there. Mizzou was up there, the top 5. Florida. Boston College. You just had a lot of random schools up there. But I mean, for as much grievance as Rutgers gets about joining the Big Ten, I I always root for the Scarlet Knights. I mean, come on. We're always a bottom program for the most part in the conference, but I like to see them do well. And I hope Michigan wins by 100, or 90 if you would. But I think Greg Schiano's a solid head coach, and never really had any issues with him. So it would be an interesting one on Saturday.
Well, shoot. Yeah, 90 would be good for the marketing.
Yes.
They did score 78 about 6 or 7 years ago, 78 zip.
Yes.
If you're a box score nerd that wants to see just like aberration after aberration, go to that box score, 78 zip Michigan. You see just like crazy numbers all over the place, like Rutgers like gaining like 4 yards or something.
Yeah, I think if you added every yard, first down, whatever it was, I still think they were short. Like if you gave them a point for everything they did in that game, I still think they're short of 78, which is just wild.
Now, before we let you go, Tanner, has anything happened in these 3 weeks of non-significant games to make you think anything differently about this team? Or has there been anybody that stood out that you thought, okay, this is a guy that I didn't expect to be an impact player, and he's made some plays, or anybody we need to look out for?
Yeah, I think the only thing is kind of the offensive line has had its ups and downs thus far, which I wouldn't say is concerning. I think there's a lot of opportunity to grow. And I think Michigan fans, myself included, got spoiled last year at Oluwatimi, who got some run for the Seahawks in Detroit yesterday at center when their center went down. And he's just a heck of a football player. And I don't think you're going to have that level from Drake Nugent this year. I think Drake Nugent's very good, but Olu, Remington winner, Outland winner, like that's a very special kind of player. So I think that's where I think maybe some of us drank the Kool-Aid and we're like, no, it's fine. Michigan will replace 3 guys on the O-line and they'll continue to just, churn out 6-7 yards of carry. I think where Michigan can improve is with communication on the O-line. There were some pressure that kind of came through where it was like, okay, well, maybe they could have, shifted their line adjustment or whatever it was on Saturday. So that's given me some pause. But nothing real. I still think this team by the end of the year is going to be playing really high level football. They've got their toughest game at home against Ohio State. I think Penn State looked a little more mortal against Illinois. Drew Allard looked a little less scary, if you will. So I feel pretty good about Michigan at this point. And now it's just, it's really just survive in advance, right? Not saying they need to survive any games, but it's just take it one game at a time, get out of there healthy, do what you need to do, and get to November when you're 8, 9, 10, and 0, get to Happy Valley, maybe win that game, and then get back home to Ann Arbor to play the Buckeyes and kind of take it from there. Because this is truly a 2-game regular season for Michigan and then a 3-game postseason, right, with the Big Ten championship potentially and maybe 2 playoff games. So as far as a surprise performer, didn't really know how much he was going to play, but Keon Sabb, big-time recruit in 2022, has played a lot of really good football this year. Makari Page has been banged up. Rod Moore's been out, 2 of their starting safeties. And so he's come in and played really, really well. So very excited about him. Excited about some of the freshmen. Kenneth Grant, just a monster. So, yeah, there's been a lot of really, pleasant surprises. And I think overall it's been aside from the interceptions on Saturday, like if you didn't have the interception on Saturday, I'd be like, yeah, this is kind of what I expected. And feeling good, but still some things to work on, like every team in the country has. And September 18th, week 3 of the season. So we got a long way to go, man, which is the best part.
And no respect for Maryland.
Well, I watched them against Charlotte. I watched them against Virginia. They are who we thought they were. To quote Dennis Green, the late great Dennis Green. Talia is good. I don't think they have a real true number 1 wide receiver with Rakeem Jarrett gone to the NFL. I don't know. I just don't see it. They're going to win 7 games probably, but they will not beat the big boys. That's just kind of how I feel about them. And, but it could be a trap game. Ask me in November and I'll tell you how I really feel then, but looking ahead, no, I watched a true freshman dice them up in the first half from Virginia, who is probably the worst Power 5 team in the country. So I think all of us that are fans of Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State probably don't have to worry about too much about Maryland this year.
And just because I can't let this go, Sam, 2006 Rutgers could hang with anyone. The answer to that is no, a resounding no. Florida, Michigan, Ohio State, those years, no. They're not staying within 3 touchdowns.
No.
Sorry.
It was a fun story, though, and I will tell you real quick, I'm not going to say his name because he did some really bad things, but I really enjoyed playing with running back number 28 at Rutgers on NCAA football, 07, 08. They had a nice direct snap to the running back that was pretty fun to use. So that was my experience with Rutgers football.
We're talking about the running back who moved on to the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, Ray Rice. Come
on, Ray Rice.
I know. I guess.
Hey, if his wife stood by his side, she's the one who's
true. She should be the jury
and all that.
Yeah, that's true. But sticking with the spirit of those old college games,
yes.
Chad Henne was quarterback number 7. Troy Smith quarterback number 10, whatever. So, but that Rutgers team on NCAA was pretty fun.
Okay, good stuff. Tanner, we appreciate you stopping by, man. This was good stuff.
Thank you, sir. You have a good night.
You too.